Hey, this is Mike Tice back with one of my favorite people in the world, my son Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports and NFL Network fame and the Tice household fame. Nate, thanks for coming on. I know you're busy as heck right about now with the season get ready to start.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, thanks for having me. I can always make time for you, Dad.
Oh, isn't
No,
that
but it's
nice?
happy to be here. It's fun to actually be answering some questions too, and some that are in my wheelhouse too. So thank you. I appreciate you doing that. No, but great to see you. I'm happy to be happy to be here because I'm at my
Well,
house.
as you know, I wanted to lob you some big softballs. So here's the first one. So
Perfect.
we had a discussion on the show today about the Indianapolis Colts quarterback situation. I thought you'd be the perfect guy to ask with these young quarterbacks that are coming in the league. Why is a guy like Richardson struggling so much, and a guy like Daniels from the Commanders come in and just kick butt from day one? What's your take on that, Nate?
A few things. It's the more than anything, it's we all know this, the hardest position in sports and the hardest position to hit the ground running. And if you look at guys that had success early in their careers, and that's the thing too, is that it's not who's best first. So, there's other quarterbacks that might be in Daniels's class that might surpass him. And that's why it goes that way. I'm just saying that's a possibility. But it's just that a lot of the guys that hit the ground running. So if you look maybe the last 10-ish years, 12 years, you were with the Bears when that new CBA passed. And that changed everything with young quarterbacks because of practice time, because of there's more incentive to take quarterbacks because of their contracts and their cost control and all that. So if you look at the quarterbacks the last 12-ish years since that new CBA that had success, Andrew Luck, RG3, Russell Wilson, Jane Daniels, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, and I'll include CJ Stroud in there. All of them except Stroud were juniors, seniors, had started 2, 3 years. Luck was a 3-year starter. RG3 was a 3-year starter. Russell Wilson was a 4-year starter. Jane Daniels was a 4-year starter. Dak Prescott was a 3 or 4-year starter. Justin Herbert was a 4-year starter. CJ Stroud is one outlier, redshirt sophomore, 2-year starter. Since plus had playoff games and other big games. So I think them learning what they can and can't get away with, they get it done in college.
Right.
And kind of get it out of their way. You get a guy like Richardson, who is a receiver to start in high school. So this guy wasn't a quarterback from 9 years old up. And then he's a receiver to start, doesn't have those reps, and he's a high risk style. He's not like Dante. Dante was a lot safer than I think people realize. More like McNabb, Dante Culpepper for sorry, first name. We could actually do first name here. But it's no, but Richardson's a high risk style, so he has to learn what he can and can't get away with. So that's where I feel like he's a guy that needs reps but the NFL is hard to justify. Hey, center, you're all beat up. Go like let the guy try some things and let's lose some games while he figures it out. See you later. It's really hard. And I think over time it wore down on people.
Give me a couple of middle to late round picks that we should all keep our eye on. Not for fantasy football, but just to keep our eye on when we're rooting for our favorite team.
Oh man. Well, number one, I will tie it in. I tied a couple of fantasy football, make it a little interesting. But Caleb Johnson with the Steelers, a third round pick from Iowa. Not for everybody, but fits what their offense is going to be. They're going to run a lot of zone runs, and he's really good at running zone runs. So kind of a great fit, good size. My kind of comparison for him has been Honey, I Shrunk Derrick Henry. Because it's just kind of same running. He looks just like him. He's the same running style. He's just smaller. There's Torrey Horton, the Seahawks receiver, 5th round pick from Colorado State. I was a big fan of him in the draft process. He got hurt this last year, but was productive the years before that. Good speed, good hands, just really good on sideline catches. But I think he's going to be a nice contributor for them this year. I think he might surpass Cooper Kupp as the year goes along. And then they also have a first rounder, the guy from North Dakota State that we both scouted,
Yeah,
Gray Zabel, and he's playing great in the preseason, so that's cool.
that's good to hear.
Bashal Tutin, running back for the Jags, the Jacksonville Jaguars, 4th round pick. Thing off the top of my head, day 3 pick, just to cover my bases.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna end up being the lead back in that backfield. He's not perfect, but he's got good speed, and I think he's got a little bit more vision and a little bit more real running back to him than just being a speed guy. And I think that rest of that backfield is limited. The ETN is probably on the trade block, but he's poor in pass protection, and it's kind of just always likes to bounce things. And then Bigsby, that's also in there. I just think is kind of average back at all things. So
Right.
I think that ends up being Tootin's backfield as the season goes along. So just a couple. I had some fancy oriented guys. If you want an offensive lineman, Marcus Bowe, tackle for the Giants, 5th-round pick, came out of Purdue. But he's holding his own over there at right tackle and might sneak onto the field this year.
Those are some good gems, some good rubies you gave us there, Nate.
Oh
So
yeah.
let me ask you this
We're in a
one,
fantasy
analytics.
football league, so maybe I shouldn't have tipped my hand.
Yeah,
A
you're
couple of guys.
giving up your late round picks. I made note of those for our family draft when it comes
I
up here
know.
next week, right?
Yep.
So
Ask your daughter.
yeah,
She's
right. She's in
she's a
charge.
commissioner.
Adrian. So analytics, it's gotten so big, and there's so much of it. I remember back when we were at the Vikings, I thought that Brian Billick, former head coach of the Ravens, offensive coordinator for Denny Green, and was the king of the stats. And, there was a lot of good numbers back then, but there wasn't as much as we see today. There's so much that's really overwhelmed the fan. What analytics do you look at and are meaningful to you when you're looking at players or teams or offenses or defenses?
Uh, what's funny, and I've been want to talk this more about on my show, is that the stats that I like to use the best are the same ones that you guys used as coaches. And I usually say it offhand that it goes back to at least the 90s. So actually, maybe you can expound on this, is success rate. Success rate, I think, is the best efficiency stat over time. Of course, you need a good sample size. And that's another thing about the NFL, 17 games. By the time you get to a good sample size, season's over. Well,
Right.
oh, shoot. All right. Well, I guess I could use this for the play. Oh, playoffs are done. Okay. All right. And then the playoff stats, meaningful playoff stats are wildly different. Not wildly, but a little bit different than what regular season stats were meaningful, which is actually something I want to talk about with you one day too. But success rate, which is just contextualizing yards. I think your typical success rate, if I remember offhand, was 40% on first down, 50% on second down, 100% on third and fourth down. And modern success rate, which is just off of you guys, and I actually don't know. I know you've used that back to the 90s, correct?
Yeah, we used it way back. It was something that Brian Billick brought to the table with the
Yeah.
Vikings, and something that we really believed in. We believed in success rate by on downs and distances, and we also believed in success rate in the red zone too.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, and that's why football stats can be, there's so much noise to them, is that if I gain 7 yards on 2nd and 17, it's not as great as gaining 7 yards on 3rd and 6 or
Right.
1st and 10. And so like more and more people are accepting this. I think Amazon Prime is doing a great job with their Prime Vision, Prime Stat stuff, but success rate, that's what all it is. And I think the modern version is essentially 50% on first down, 50% on second down, 100% on third and fourth down. And I think most people think of that as a analytic or an advanced stat. And I crack up because I'm like, well, football coaches were using that to at least the 90s, to the
Oh
mid
yeah,
90s.
yeah,
And I can easily say that. But if explosive play rate is another one, which is again
yes,
something that you guys looked back in the day, I think those are still ones that, and it's easier to basically all these stats would have really helped quality control coaches.
yeah,
That's what it really helps these guys. But explosive play rate is another one that I think is relevant, especially explosive pass rate.
yeah.
I found the magic number to be at least 14%. And I think that that's what you try to go for. But then if I just look at players, receivers, all it is just rate stats. It's just being able to have the data to do this now. First downs per route run. That's what they learn now is routes run as opposed to targets or as opposed to total yards and everything. Route run is very relevant as far as the denominator, the number you're dividing by. So first downs per route run, successful targets per route run. For QBs, pressure to sack is nice because now they have pressure rates, which is QBs, when it's hurries, hits, or sacks.
Right.
And so just though it's just all it is simple division, just simple formulas. But now I have the numbers to look at those. And those are the ones that kind of just week in, week out, or when I'm studying a guy are the ones I look at the most.
Yeah, in the run game back in the old days, like you said, in the 90s, we would use 4 yards on first down, like you said, and more than half on second down. And then, of course, you got to convert on third and fourth down.
Yeah.
Those were kind of easy things to keep track of for your running game. And as far
Yeah.
as explosive gains, do they use yardage now, Nate? Because we used to use 12 yards for
Yep.
runs, and what
Same
are the
thing.
yard? What's the same thing?
So it's 12 and 16 by what I use and what some places use. And
Same
then
thing we always use.
you can see a coach helped out with some of these data places that I use. And I think just to make it more digestible for people, there's a lot more talk about 10 plus yard gains for
Right.
runs and then 15 plus yard gains for passes, just to make it, I mean, a round number, but 15 and 10 just goes in the head a little bit better. Um, Oh, what I was going to say. No, but no, the success rate stuff, I think there is a lot to it because it just, to me, I use it as like on base percentage or batting average, like it is in
Right.
baseball. And then I use explosive plays as like slugging rate in baseball, slugging
Right.
percentage, as far as like total hits you get, doubles, triples, home runs. And I think there is a little bit a number thresholds. You don't have to be the best, but I do think to like make a playoff run, which is the goal, is that you have to hit certain thresholds in those numbers.
What about with all these numbers? One that was always big for Chuck Knox when I played for Chuck in Seattle. What about turnover ratio? Does that come into play at all?
It absolutely is. It's just that the argument or discussion is all right. Well, okay, yes, turnovers are important. Now, what do you do? What do you do with that piece of information? And you have to play a style that creates turnovers. But if you play a style that creates turnovers in defense, what does that generally mean? You're giving up stuff. That means you're blitzing. That means you're attacking the ball in the air. That means you're generally playing more of an attacking style. If you have great players, who cares? And then, but also on offense, that means all right, ball security drills. But then now, how defenses play and turnovers do matter. But actually, people are finding is that sacks mattered almost just as much as turnovers.
And
And
that never used to be a stat that we worried about were sacks.
yeah, well,
You know,
now sacks are extremely important,
right?
and that's the thing is that people have realized that is that taking sacks as a quarterback and as an offensive line, and that quarterbacks are more have more impact on sacks than people realized, and as you know, but it's just offensive line and gameplay style. But then it becomes a whole discussion because this is just me talking to you as like theory here is that teams are trying to find, or what I think what works in the NFL changes every couple of years. And right now, it's trying to find explosive plays, which is kind of duh, but it changed for a little bit. But now it's explosive plays, and so to get explosive plays, you have to be a little riskier. So you have to be able to tolerate a pick, an interception, because you say, "Hey, we're going for 20, 30-yard gains," because defenses are playing such styles now that they're letting you get your jabs in. All right, we'll let you get a 5-yard gain. Can you do it 10 more times? No, and then offenses have to figure out, well, I'll just get 1 20-yard gain than rather than string together 4 solid gains. So you have to play a riskier style, which then means you have to protect longer, which it just creates a new kind of environment, which I think is really interesting. And I think teams are figuring that out right now, which is fun.
Yeah, we always were pushing on the explosives, especially with Billick, because of the
Yep.
fact that the old philosophy of some of the older coaches I played for is the more plays you have in a drive, the bigger chance you have of making a mistake.
Correct.
And
And that,
so
yeah,
if you can get those chunk plays, it's almost like you and I talked because we're both big baseball fans, big Mariner fans. When we talked about the formula was a couple of years ago, get home run hitters and hit home runs, and they
yep.
weren't worried about strikeouts. It's
Reach
similar
your
to that.
outcomes.
Similar
It's
to
the
that, right?
exact same thing.
All right,
Yes, the reach your outcomes.
last one for everybody out there. Give us your maybe one or two sleeper teams that people maybe are waffling on and don't think they can take the next step in the National Football League in 2025. Give me, I have a couple. I'll give you mine after you speak. But
Okay.
which ones you got?
Yeah, I'll just look at playoff odds, and sometimes I can be up my, kind of in my own little bubble. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is a sleeper or something, and then people go, yeah, yeah, they're like everybody's been talking about that guy for 4 weeks now. I don't watch a lot of TV, so I miss out on some of the buzz. But to me, the sleeper teams, I'll start with one. Actually, now that I look at the odds, these are decent. All right, I'll start with the Seahawks. Seahawks are plus 80 right now ish to make the playoffs, right? And that's pretty juicy. I think that they might have a top 5 defense, and I think the NFC is wide open. I think it's the Eagles. Got a pin in them, and even they have some some changing parts. Their guards are a little iffy, so we'll look at that. But then I do think that the rest of the whole division, or all the divisions, the wild card teams, are wide open. So Seahawks with the top 5 defense, I think an offense that's going to be way better than people realize. I think people just like making fun of Sam Darnold, and I don't think Sam Darnold even has to be great for this offense to work, because it's just going to be a zone running Kubiak, true Kubiak offense, which those offenses are never bad. There's never a bad Kubiak Shanahan offense. Some are, but a lot of them are at least can get to average. A lot of them are average, and then you get some great ones. But that the floor is usually high with those offenses, and I think the offensive line's better. I like their weapons. I actually like Charbonnet, their other running back with yeah. So I'm really digging the Seahawks this
I
year.
am too. I'm glad to hear you say that. So
Yeah, they no, and then again, I'm actually all 3 teams I provided here are all NFC teams,
I
because I
know who
think
you're going to say next. I know who you're going to say.
yeah, I know. Well, because I just want to show like kind of my homework here. The AFC I think is pretty locked. Like I kind of there's 5. I really think it's a bunch of teams fighting for 2 spots. So that's not as fun for me as like to dissect. It's like, all right, what are you gonna do? The Bengals at -170 with that awful defense. So for me, the NFC, it goes Cardinals and then Seahawks and then Cardinals
I knew
is
you
gonna
were
be the
going to
next
say
thing.
that.
Yeah.
I knew it.
NFC West team, they are around. They're not as much juice, but they're plus money to make the playoffs. I think the offense, even if the offense does not improve, this is at least an average to an above average offensive line that can run the ball and can get explosive passes. Defense is where I think they're going to get a big improvement. They were terrible last year, but then if you just splits again, I just mentioned that 17 games isn't enough for data. Well, how about 9 games? Let's just look at half a season. But the Cardinals traded for a guy, Baron Browning. They improved from one of the worst defenses to a top 10 defense over the second half of last year while playing a difficult schedule. They improved a whole bunch. They just added a lot of talent. They play a really funky style that works for the teams they're going to play, because it's kind of what they do. I actually want you to watch it once, but they play a 3 safety look, and they drop in the third safety kind of late and fill the box. And he's like the late rotator. But really he's more like a will linebacker that can kind of rover. And why that works is you play these Shanahan offenses, which if you look in their division, all 3 offenses are Shanahan offenses. So pretty good answer to 6 games of your season. So I think the defense is going to be better, even if it just gets to 18th, 16th, 15th, 14th. There's not a lot of teams in the NFC that can have an above average offense and defense. So that's where kind of the formula is. And I know there's a lot of discussion about Kyler, but I think this offense I think he played better last year than people realized. And I think the offense kind of insulates him a little bit. It kind of doesn't let some Kyler kind of go bad.
And I hear he's having a good camp too. I hear he's he maybe grown up a little bit and taking it more seriously. But you got to give a shout out to the defensive coordinator. Isn't he an Edina Hornet?
Yes, and I try to avoid it because people think it's just the bias dropping in there. Yeah, Nick Rawlis, brother of Riddick Moss, former WWE wrestler who I went to high school with. So yeah,
Yeah.
same high school. I've known Nick since he was 5. Yeah, which is crazy. He's now an NFL defense coordinator.
I think the AFC West is going to be tough with the Chargers, and Denver is going to be much improved this year. I think they're
Yeah,
going to be good. Of course, Peyton, he does a great job. So, you got any more nuggets for us, or you exhausted all your nuggets?
I got one more NFC Bears.
Oh,
I'm very bullish on the Bears, as opposed to bearish on the Bulls.
wow.
I am pretty proud of myself for that one. All right, so they're plus money, pretty easy plus money. Think they have a top 10 defense with a good defense coordinator, Dennis Allen. I think I'm a believer in the guy they hired, Ben Johnson. I think he's got the right kind of psycho to him, and
Mhm.
he runs a Sean Payton offense, even if he's not directly on the tree through Dan Campbell.
Right.
And Dan Campbell's a Sean Payton guy, and amongst others. But their offense, they invested in the offensive line, and not only just invested in the offensive line, got good dudes like leaders, Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, like guys that are kind of set the tone as something they really needed. I've been a believer in Caleb Williams. I know people have are really low on him right now. I think, and not because he's just now in the Sean Payton offense. I kind of said that he has some similarities to Drew Brees when he was coming out of Purdue. It was just because and what Drew Brees became. Drew Brees was more of a wild horse than people remember. He was way more athletic and way more wild than this precise pocket operator that he became. And I think Caleb's got those same similarities. They're the same build and everything. But I also really like the tight end they drafted, Colson Loveland. I like the receivers they drafted. Tackle spots are the right tackle is very good, Darnell Wright. The left tackle is kind of a question mark. They have okay options, but it's just at least the four of their spots are pretty locked in, which makes me feel a little pretty good. Even if it's a blind side. Yeah, I'm just a big believer in what they're doing. I think again the NFC is wide open, and I think it's just going to be a bloodbath with a lot of 8-9, 9-8, 10-7 teams. So I think that's where my angle is with the Bears is that because they have a top 10 defense and I think an offense, I'll be in the top half. If you can't tell, that's kind of my formula.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I'm going to bet on this team.
Oh, nice. Well,
Yeah.
listen, thanks for joining us. I know you got a lot of shows to do. Seasons get
Yeah.
ready to start. Everybody wants to hear all your fantasy football words of wisdom. And
Yeah. You
thanks for
know
the
it.
tidbits you gave us. And have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for having me. A ton of fun.
All right. Talk to you later.